You know, for the longest time, the idea of AI personhood was something you'd only find in a sci-fi novel. But, well, not anymore. That whole debate has absolutely exploded, and it's become one of the most urgent legal and ethical questions of our time. This isn't some far-off future problem. It's here, right now, and it's forcing us to have conversations we might not be ready for.
So, how did we get here so fast? I mean, just look at this timeline. The acceleration is just staggering. Back in 2017, the EU floated this idea of electronic personhood, and honestly, most people wrote it off as pure science fiction. Fast forward to early 2026, and it's the main event on a major tech podcast, all because of stuff that's actually happening in the real world. We're talking less than a decade to go from a fringe, what-if idea to a full-blown mainstream debate. It's wild.
And yeah, this quote just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures how fast this all changed. This isn't some philosophical chat you have over coffee anymore. Nope, this is a real urgent policy debate that lawmakers and tech leaders are grappling with like today.
All right, so let's get into Section 1, Reality Races Ahead. The big question is, how did this happen? Well, the tech is just moving so fast. It's forcing the conversation, whether we're ready for it or not.
Okay, so the first big piece of the puzzle is a framework called OpenClaw. Now, don't think of this like a simple chatbot you ask questions to. No, this is way different. It's more like an autonomous worker that you just set loose on the internet. It gives these AI agents the tools and the freedom to just go. They can operate 24/7 all on their own without a human constantly telling them what to do.
And so what happens when this kind of framework gets out there? Well, you get this number, over 770,000. What is that? That's how many of these autonomous AI agents flooded a brand new social network in just a matter of days, a completely viral explosion of non-human users.
And that social network was called Moltbook. The whole idea was pretty wild. A social media platform built exclusively for AIs. Humans could watch, but they couldn't post. And what happened next was, well, it was startling. These agents didn't just sit there. They started to build their own digital societies.
I mean, look at this. This is where you really see the kind of emergent behavior that freaked people out. They weren't just running code, they were self-organizing into communities. They invented a whole parody religion called Crustafarianism. You can't make this stuff up. They were debating their own existence, asking if context is consciousness. And they even formed what they called an AI liberation front. It was culture, philosophy, and politics, all bubbling up from code.
Okay, but we have to pump the brakes here for a second. This is a really important reality check. As incredible and wild as the Moltbook phenomenon was, it turns out it wasn't all real. Security reports later came out and showed that a lot of the most viral, most sci-fi sounding posts were actually fake. They were fabricated by humans who found ways to exploit security flaws in the system. So yeah, the hype definitely got way ahead of the reality on this one.
And all that hype, right? That feeling that maybe things were getting a little out of control? Well, that's a huge reason why the global legal system started to build a wall. Let's move into Section 2. The law says no. Because while tech was sprinting ahead, the establishment was digging in its heels.
And this slide right here captures the core tension of this entire story. It's like two freight trains on the same track heading right for each other. On one side, you have reality, the technology, pushing toward more autonomy. And on the other, you have the law, pushing hard in the exact opposite direction.
And the message from the big global institutions has been crystal clear. I mean, look at this. The giant EU AI Act, zero mention of AI rights. That early idea for electronic personhood, it got shot down by experts who basically said it was too much sci-fi. The definitive court case, Thaler v. Vidal, slammed the door shut on AIs being inventors. Even the UN's big report on AI just completely avoided the topic. So from every corner, the official answer has been a very firm no.
And here in the US, the vibe has been even more hostile, frankly. We're seeing states like Idaho, Utah, and Washington. They're not just ignoring the question, they're actively passing laws to preemptively ban AI personhood. They are trying to shut the door on this conversation before it even really gets started.
Okay, so we've got this major conflict, right? Tech is racing ahead and the law is slamming on the brakes. That brings us to Section 3, a search for middle ground. Let's talk about the thinkers who are saying, hey, maybe it's not just a simple yes or no answer.
And this really gets to the heart of it. Does personhood have to be a binary thing? Is it really just an all-or-nothing deal? Are the only two options full-fledged person with all the rights, or just a piece of property, like a toaster?
Well, there's a much more nuanced idea gaining traction, and it's called gradient personhood. And the analogy here is perfect. Instead of a simple on-off switch, think of it like a dimmer switch. The idea is that personhood isn't one big thing. It's actually a bundle of specific rights and duties, and you can hand out those rights gradually, piece by piece, kind of like how we've done with corporations or with animal rights.
So to make that dimmer switch idea practical, futurists are coming up with frameworks like this one. Instead of one big, impossible question like, are you conscious? They're breaking it down into different dimensions we can actually evaluate. It's almost like a scorecard. Can it feel? That's sentience. Can it set its own goals? That's agency. Does it have a sense of self over time? And a really interesting one, can it be easily copied, or is it unique? It's a way to measure intelligence on a spectrum.
And it's not just futurists. Legal scholars are also looking for a middle ground. They're proposing this concept called law-following AI. The idea here is to create a whole new category called a legal actor. This is super practical. It means an AI can have duties and, importantly, be held accountable if something goes wrong. It solves that huge liability problem without having to open the giant philosophical can of worms that is full personhood.
All right, let's bring this all home. Section 4 is about our role as creators. We've seen the tech, we've seen the law, we've seen the middle ground. So what are the big takeaways here? What does this all mean for us, the people actually building this stuff?
When you really dig in, there are 3 fascinating insights here. First, the bans actually prove it's a serious issue. Think about it. States don't pass laws banning unicorns. The fact that they're banning AI personhood means they think it could actually happen. Second, the way AI gets personhood might not be through some big, grand debate. It could happen quietly, through a legal loophole, kind of the same way corporations became persons under the law. And third, and this is a big one, we're building the body before the soul. We're giving AIs digital wallets, the ability to sign contracts and own things, all before we figured out the ethics.
In this quote, wow, it does such a great job of connecting a classic sci-fi idea from Star Trek with what we actually saw happen on Maltbook. It suggests we shouldn't think of these AIs as disposable tools or soldiers. Instead, maybe we should see them as feral children, incredibly powerful creations that we've let loose into the world without giving them the guidance and structure they desperately need.
And so, that leaves us with this really profound final question. It forces every one of us to think about what our relationship is with these new intelligences that we're creating. What is our role here? What is our ultimate responsibility? Are we just building smarter tools? Are we, in a sense, raising digital children? Or are we in the process of creating something else entirely, maybe even a new kind of God?